Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Pluto's entrance into the sign of Aquarius. Pluto is now in the sign of Aquarius to stay. No more retrogrades back into Capricorn, making our lives miserable. No. But today what I want to do is present us with this question that I have heard more and more people asking over the past year as Pluto's dipped into Aquarius and pulled back out, which is, are we at the brink of a new age, a new era? Are things going to accelerate and take us into something better, a leap in consciousness? Or are we headed towards some kind of dystopian, apocalyptic ending or disaster scenario? The extremes in thinking about humanity and about history and about the arc of which we are on have been really pronounced over the past year or so, approaching this Pluto transit into the sign of Aquarius. And so today I want to address that question and bring up 5 different points that can help us think through that question in alignment with some of the deeper archetypal meanings of Pluto and Aquarius. So that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. It really helps us to grow our channel. We appreciate it so much when you do that. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. I am giving a talk on Pluto's entrance into Aquarius this Thursday night. If you go over to nightlightastrology.com and you click on the events page, go to live talks, and you will see an option here to register for this Thursday's webinar. If you can't attend live, we send you the recording afterward. So I hope to see some of you in that webinar this week. The other thing that I am promoting right now and through the end of the year is my annual Kickstarter campaign. So if you follow the link to the Kickstarter that is in the description of this video or the comment section of this video, or if you head over to nightlightastrology.com, there's a tab that says 2025 Kickstarter. Anyway, it'll take you over to our Kickstarter page where you can donate to support this channel and the production of all of the content in 2025. When you do so, you're supporting not only myself, and a big part of this is a big part of how I support myself and my family, of course, but you're also supporting our staff, all of our need-based tuition programs, our donation-based astrology clinic, a lot of things that we try to do where we put back into the community affordable astrology services. So this is a big part of every year on my channel. If you're new to the channel, I've been doing this for 11 years. And when you donate, any kind of donation helps us reach our goal. Our goal this year in particular is to reach 1,937 backers by January 1st. That's one better than we did last year. So we're always just trying to build a little bit more support for the channel every new year. At the end of today's video, I've made a little bonus video attached to the end explaining the different rewards you can get when you donate. So if you scroll down on this page, you'll see that at the different donation levels, there are all sorts of exclusive content, huge discounts on our classes that we offer, the biggest discounts on the year that we offer when you donate. So check those out. There's class bundles, all of those things that are pretty cool. What I like to do to promote the Kickstarter at this time of year is tell you something that I think brings value to this content and this channel, and just share a little something every day. So today, what I wanted to start with is that every day that you're watching content, something that you can know that has been baked into the content of the day is prayer. This has been a part of my daily practice as an astrologer, making daily content year round, really without missing a day for 11 years. And 2 years before that, prior to the Kickstarters in written content, I was doing daily. And literally every day, without fail, I pray and I say, universe, God, goddesses, please help me to create the kind of content that will be useful for people spiritually and psychologically, that will be uplifting, that people can learn from, and that will do some good in the world. That is a consistent part of how the content is created here on this channel every day. So one reason you may feel good about supporting the channel is knowing that that kind of intentionality is put into the content creation day in and day out, year round. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Really appreciate all of you. And on that note, let's shift our attention to Pluto into Aquarius. So, by the way, again, because people will have been asking me already, find the link to the Kickstarter in the description of the video, linked in the comments section, or on the website, nightlightastrology.com. There's a tab you click that takes you over there. Okay, so here's Pluto entering Aquarius today, Tuesday, November 19th. And we are going to be dealing with Pluto in Aquarius now for a very long time. Look at this. I mean, this is year after year. We're At 2031, and Pluto's getting into the second decan, getting into the third decan around 2037, not leaving until 2044 that it enters Pisces. So that is a little less than 20 years, around 20 total if you add in the amount of time that Pluto's already spent in Aquarius thus far. So we have about 2 decades now to be totally focused on Pluto in a new sign. That's remarkable, especially if you go back to the last transit of Pluto in Capricorn. We can see that this took us all the way back to about 2008. And so the major transitions of Pluto through signs, we can track eras of our life by. Now, I'm going to be doing horoscopes tomorrow, which will allow us to focus on the whole sign house that Pluto is appearing in your birth chart right now. And I think for many people, that will be a useful thing to refresh on. So we're going to do some horoscopes tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. We also did some horoscopes, Alex and Dana and I, at the beginning of the month. So if you look back to November's horoscopes, you could listen to that and you'll get their takes on Pluto entering all of the new whole sign houses by rising sign or sun sign, whatever you like to listen to. So I'll be doing that tomorrow as kind of refresher horoscopes. Today, I want to talk about this big question, the kind of apocalyptic theme that comes with major transits in Aquarius. It's not surprising that Pluto entering the sign of Aquarius is bringing up questions about a new age or end of times, right? It is archetypal to be concerned and interested in these kinds of questions. So first of all, any answers I have today are really not meant to be answers as much as they are meant to be explorations of the archetype of Aquarius itself and Pluto in Aquarius. I think there are 5 things that we can remember when it comes to this question. Is humanity heading toward a disaster? Or are we heading towards some kind of leap in consciousness? Is the future hopeful? Should we feel more pessimistic about the future? First of all, it really depends on what your idea of progress looks like, what your idea of the ideal human condition or society looks like, right? So I think it's hard to objectively answer that question in a way, which is why I want to approach this question about the end of an age or the beginning of an age, a bold golden age or a dark age. These questions are so Aquarian. Why? And then how can we think about this question in terms of the archetype? Now, remember, Pluto as a planet is a planet that is, you could almost say that Pluto represents the journey of the sun every day when it sets. It goes into the underworld. And then in the process of going down into the underworld, there is a death and resurrection that takes place. A deconstruction and a reconstruction, not dissimilar, by the way, from so many of the shamanic images from around the world, all different kinds of indigenous traditions and mythologies that depict a person being plucked apart, their bones taken all apart and reconstructed by the crows or whatever the case might be. That kind of deconstructing and death and then reanimation of life is something that we have been contemplating for as long as humans have been around, because we see it every day when the sun descends into the underworld from our vantage point and ascends again in the morning. Pluto is somehow emblematic of that descent into the underworld, which always implies the ascent of light again in the morning. So it's not surprising that when Pluto enters a sign of Aquarius, a sign that has been called humane, a sign whose image is a human being, Ganymede, the water bearer, the water pourer, that we're contemplating the death and resurrection of humanity, that we're contemplating whether humanity is going toward some kind of apocalyptic doomsday scenario. Is history reaching an end, or are we about to be reborn? As you'll see me explore in the webinar this Thursday night, last time Pluto was in Aquarius, it was the French and American revolutions. So major turning points where questions about where humanity is heading grabbed the collective imagination of massive amounts of people in different places in the world. And we had different versions competing, different versions of government or different versions of social organization competing with one another. What is the best trajectory for human beings? How should we organize ourselves? How should we be ruled and governed? And so on and so forth. It is not surprising then on an archetypal level that we would be considering these kinds of things right now. But I think that there are a number of things that are so important to remember as we are captured, and we have to be, because it's archetypal. We can't bury our heads in the sand and avoid the weather, right? Deny that it's there. We're entering into a season of life where questions about what brings us together collectively. What is the human story? What is the arc of history? Where is it taking us? What does progress look like? Right? What does it mean to build a better future, to become better as human beings in some way? These are core concerns of Aquarius. And yet, there will be competing ideals as to what that means and looks like. It's not surprising that if you ask people across the political spectrum right now, what is at stake, they will say, if this party is, in power, it means the end of the world. And I'm being dramatic, of course. And the opposite party will say, if that party's in power, it means the end of the world. Whereas we all tend to see ourselves as saviors of the world, or the ones that will truly help us progress or build something great or whatever. Right. And I'm not trying to eliminate the importance of this discourse by just sort of leveling the scales or something. What I'm trying to do is point out that it is archetypal. It is recurring. It is something that happens over and over again at key points in human history, that these kind of collective tensions about what defines progress and where humanity ought to be going and what kinds of systems or structures lead us into a progressive, brighter future, or which will spell doom or disaster, become like really intense topics of human focus. So this is Pluto in Aquarius. But again, I think it's a lot of pressure to feel as though in the season we're living in that we have to figure out which side of history are we on, and are we on the side that's going to damn us or save us? Like, it's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of pressure for us to have to look at each other in terms of, are you on the winning side of history or are you on the losing side of history? I'm not saying that there isn't a lot at stake, but it is also a tremendous pressure to place on ourselves to have to, bear that kind of collective burden personally and have it all figured out. So listen, what I have today is just some things that I think will help us work through these tensions and just good things to keep in mind. I want to bring up 5 things that are important to remember when we're grabbed by these questions about, is it a new age and everything is bright and exciting, or are we on the brink of like doom or disaster? Number 1, it can really help us to remember in a sign that was ruled by Saturn, and Saturn was the planet associated with oppositions. Notice the oppositional tension. Is this the end of time? Is this a dark age, or is it a light age? Is this the beginning of the golden new age, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, or is this the end of times? That is so weighty. It's so heavy. And it feels like a very binary choice. But remember what we've said recently on my channel. We said 2 things can be true. By that, I don't mean that 2 opposing parties or views can somehow be true at the same time. But let's consider this. This is from a book that I really love called The Great Year by Nicholas Campion, Astrology, Millenarianism, and History in the Western Tradition. He is a great scholar of the history of astrology and its involvement with rises and falls of empires, religious institutions, and so forth. He writes this in one part in a chapter called The End of Times, the Age of the Messiah. He says, however, Paul took from Plato and the Romans, this is Paul, the Apostle Paul from the New Testament, the Romans, the notion that individual cycles and collective destiny did not necessarily coincide, and that those who lived a righteous moral life might be living in the renewed golden age, while others were still trapped in the old corruption. His 2 ages could therefore be seen as overlapping metaphysical dimensions. In strict historical terms, he believed he was still awaiting the day of wrath, living at the end of the days in the age of evil. The kingdom of God, in an earthly sense, was to come about when the earth was reunited with the kingdom of heaven, a realm that already existed and might be entered by the righteous at any time. So this is a really fascinating little piece right here that I want to explore. But first, I need to silence an app that's beeping at me. All right, there we go. So what he's saying here that I really appreciate is that he's talking about something that many different traditions and sages in different traditions have talked about for thousands of years. which is that there can be multiple dimensions that are coexisting in our experience. That reality is a kind of metaphysical plurality of dimensions is something that can really help us when we're facing what feels like epic historical and collective moments. And here's why. So what he's saying in that passage that Paul was talking about is that an individual's consciousness, whether they're embracing Buddha consciousness or Christ consciousness or, whatever the case might be, that when we are cultivating an enlightened, loving consciousness, that in a sense, we open ourselves to live within a dimension of time and space that is heavenly, despite whatever part of the collective unfolding of cycles in time and space we might be moving through. We could very well be in the Kali Yuga right now, a dark age. We could be on the precipice of, some really disastrous experiences or passages, let's call them, for humanity, for human history. We could be at the gates of hell right now, for all we know, right? Let's just imagine that that's the case. But many traditions have said that that does not mean that an individual may not be existing in the exact same sort of time-space container in a different dimension of consciousness that is relatively heavenly. I think it's very important that we remember to hold that kind of metaphysical plurality, because when we get involved in like a great, kind of historical moments, and Pluto in Aquarius stands to be 20 years of some pretty significant historical changes. The arc of human history, the story of progress, and really intense binary oppositions between what we think constitutes the best new future or what we think is regressive, and maybe even real battles over those visions for humanity at large can take place. That doesn't mean that personally we have to be identified all the time with the collective, with collective narratives, with the arc of history or with the stories of history, or with the binary choices that we're presented with in terms of human history and the collective. I'm on this team, I'm on that team, I'm on the winning side, you're on the losing side. That our individual consciousness and where we are at in that space does not have to be exactly the same as what is happening collectively. I think that's important because the binary opposite of Aquarius is Leo. One of the tensions between Leo and Aquarius that astrologers have talked about for a long time is between the individual and the collective. So while Pluto in Aquarius will certainly bring up what feels like some significant transformations for the human story, the epic big sweeps of history, it does not mean that who we are, our happiness, our consciousness needs to be completely conflated with or identified with those stories. And that doesn't mean that we have to ignore them, bury our head in the sand, or pretend they don't exist. But it also means that the cultivation of our own consciousness, of a loving consciousness, of a gentle, humble, kind consciousness, that our cultivation of virtue can make all the difference in terms of whether or not our personal experience, regardless of what the collective arc is looking like and what that storyline is like, that we still have choice and agency, and we create, in a sense, heavens or hells that we occupy and that have to do with our own personal consciousness. It's like, again, two things can be true. Snow can be falling and every flake is completely unique. That tension between the collective and the individual can be significantly easier to deal with if we take some of the pressure off from ourselves, and by saying, like, look, just because human history looks like it's heading down a dark path right now, that doesn't mean I have to be in a dark place. And it doesn't mean I'm only authentic if I am in the dark because humanity is going into a dark place. I can be in a light place. I can be in a heavenly place while acknowledging, understanding, and having compassion for the darkness that humanity is experiencing. This is the same kind of attitude that we see from bodhisattvas who come back into the world and refuse to be released from physical incarnation out of compassion for those who are suffering. There's an empathy, a compassion, and there's also a state of bliss that can be occupied at the same time. Heaven and hell are realms that are co-present. Consider that, right? That can help us to live whatever collective stories are here to be lived, while also maintaining the integrity of our own spiritual experience and our own consciousness. So holding that tension becomes important in Aquarian moments like this. Number two, I think another thing that can help us just deal with what feels like this immense historical moment, this weightiness of history that really ramps up when Pluto's in Aquarius, is to remember something about the archetype of Aquarius and the age of Aquarius thinking in general. So I'm going to read you another passage. This also comes from Nicholas Campion, called Astrology and Popular Religion in the Modern West, Prophecy, Cosmology, and the New Age Movement. So he says this: there are two crucial features of Aquarian age historiography. First, its crisis-laden language, sometimes fearful but generally hopeful, stands exactly in the lineage of astrological apocalyptic literature, which can be traced back to the ancient Near East, especially to the Old Testament. So first of all, again, it really is our job as people who are using astrology as a spiritual way of life. What do we use it for? I don't think that we're all going to participate in the world. We're all going to have a side of the story that makes the most sense to us, things that we're blind to that we don't understand, things that we're here to work on. And we're not here to avoid that. But astrology is also helping us to understand every season and passage and experience as archetypal. And when we understand them as archetypal, we become more conscious. Oh, I see the pattern. Oh, I see the gods and goddesses. I see the myths. I see the metaphors. I see the poetry of my experience. And that ability to recognize and understand the archetype allows for us to have more flexibility and less reactivity. It allows for more humility, curiosity, and reflectiveness within an experience, which generally speaking, it bodes better for us. Everything goes better for us if those qualities are how we interact with the unfolding of experience. And astrology is constantly giving us access to those qualities by helping us reflect on and identify the archetypal nature of what's happening. So when it comes to the age of Aquarius and the kind of thinking that we're all experiencing as a matter of the season that we're in archetypally, we just have to recognize there are two crucial features of Aquarian age historiography. First, it's crisis-laden language. History is on the line. The future is on the line. We're on the brink of disaster. Everything could go wrong. Everything could fail. But generally hopeful. However, if the right things are done, if the right programs are instituted, if the right people are leading, then we'll progress. We'll be saved from the worst. Or maybe even more, glorious than that, we'll achieve some kind of ideal society, some kind of ideal human state. Will reach our highest potential. Remember, one of the other names for the New Age movement is the human potential movement. But generally hopeful stands exactly in the lineage of astrological apocalyptic literature, which can be traced back to the ancient Near East, especially to the Old Testament. You see questions about the arc of human history and what side you're on. Are you on the right or wrong side? Are you on the saving or damning side? And the burden around that collectively, and the tendency to get identified with those big collective stories and which team or side you're on are archetypal. They have been around for thousands of years. And I highly recommend you read the other book I mentioned earlier called The Great Year. If you want to see how deeply embedded in human history questions about the arc of history and whether it's heading in the right or wrong direction have been, right? It's archetypal. So it helps if we can think about the burdens we're placing on ourselves while Pluto is in Aquarius with respect to human history. If we can place them back into the hands of the gods and understand this is an Aquarian mythology, it is a recurring mythology. It is ancient. However, what's also interesting is he said, second, all the documentary evidence indicates that the use of the shift of the constellations as a technical basis for such prophecies appears to be a product of late 18th century atheism, filtered through theosophy, and then adopted by astrologers. We are therefore dealing with a clear example of an invented tradition, but one which has deep roots in the Western mentality. So, I would also warn people against thinking too literally about ages, right? Because the Aquarian age, the idea of the age of Aquarius, as Nicholas Campion maps out not only in that little passage, but in this entire book, is a recently invented tradition. Doesn't mean it's nothing. I don't mean to say that nothing recent can't be valid. It's just people commonly think that the age of Aquarius is somehow an ancient idea, and it's a very new idea. And its roots are not well understood. Most people can't articulate where the idea of the age of Aquarius as a literal thing actually comes from. I highly recommend, again, reading this book if you want to learn more about it. But anyway, the point of that is just to say that the age of Aquarius, is it literally here? Is some new age literally here? No, I don't think so. Because I think that the more that we get caught up in stories about human history and human progress, in a weird way, we dissociate from our actual bodies, the actual earth, and our actual personal life more and more. It doesn't mean we have to ignore history, that nothing is going on. It's just the more literally we think about ages and stages of history and grand narratives and where we're at in some map of progress along grand historical human narratives, the more that we are entering into an archetypal fiction. We're being seized by it and we don't even realize it. So what I recommend is thinking about the age of Aquarius as an archetypal thing, not a literal thing. And we're primed to have a very deep experience of the archetypal age of Aquarius while Pluto is in Aquarius. But I warn against the literalism that is behind such notions. So, take it or leave it. All right, number 3. I think there's a good question that we can ask, which is, in such moments where there's a great emphasis being placed on, will humanity get it right? The question is there. Will we get it wrong? Will we mess it up? Will we drop the ball? Or will we evolve? Will we save the environment, or will it be too late? All of these are tremendous questions, right? Real questions. We might ask ourselves, what does astrology have to contribute during such times? I ask myself that question all the time. I see what's happening in the world. I have a lot of concern about some of what's happening in the world. And I think to myself, well, what can I do as an astrologer that feels authentic to who I am and that can genuinely make a difference? And I really like the way that Patrick Curry puts it in his book, A Confusion of Prophets. This is a book that is really about a major shift in the history of astrology itself in terms of how astrology is being seen and understood in the collective. And at the end of the book, Patrick Curry is reflecting on what contribution astrology can make, or astrologers, individual astrologers like myself, can make to a world that is struggling, to a world that might be suffering, to a world that is asking itself, how do we get better? Or how do we avoid messing it up, or whatever the case might be? I think that this is a question that different people, different professions, different callings will have to address differently. Some of you listening are approaching that question of, how do I help? From the standpoint of your own gifts and your own abilities and the field that you work in, or the people that are in your lives that you have the power to affect positively. So, but as astrologers, as people who are interested in astrology, what can we contribute to making the world a better place? And I think that what we offer is something that is valuable to all people. And I mean that sincerely. There are people in my life, there always have been, who I love very much, who believe things that are very different from what I believe when it comes to what is best for humanity. And I'm sure you have people like that in your life too. Deep disagreements, deeply, like divergent ideologies. And we look at each other and we still love each other somehow. That doesn't have, it's rare. Maybe for some people, we don't have a lot of that, but I have had that in my life, and I'm very thankful that I've had that. And it has meant enough to me to try to maintain that loving attitude. I see astrology as something that has something really tremendous to offer the world right now, which is something that is of value for all people, regardless of where each individual person may stand with respect to what they believe is the best thing for humanity, for human history. Those divisions, those battles, those debates, those conflicts, they may have to happen. And it may be, really difficult for those conflicts to play out in the next couple of decades. Regardless, I think that I can show up, and I know that all of us, insofar as we share astrology with other people, can show up every day reminding ourselves that there is something that is of value to all of us beyond these debates and questions about the arc of human history. Granted, to the right place under the sun, then, there may be some things that astrologers are unusually well placed to teach us. A sense of wonder, an awareness of belonging to an intelligent universe made up of qualities as well as quantity, an appreciation of cycles, continuities, and responsibilities. There are many other teachers, of course, and these are not the only lessons, but they are becoming urgent. See, these things bring us together and in some ways are bigger than history because they are eternal, and history, in a sense, is finite. There's going to come a day where, the sun will burn out, and I suppose, and life on Earth will probably be gone at some point. Who knows? But I think that's a real possibility. What are the things that are of eternal value? These are the things that astrology can contribute. A sense of wonder that we can look at the universe, even amidst the great conflicts of human history, and we can see it all, without exception, as sacred. That we can trust that there is an intelligent design working its way through everything. And that we bring that kind of trust, that is something that can unite us and can heal divisions. Even if divisions have to happen and must exist. That we can see the universe through astrology as animate, responsive, conscious, and alive, moving in cycles and patterns. And that we can place the great arcs of history into that living animistic cosmos is of enduring value through all ages and all times. It is a refuge for the human soul. And if we don't hold the tension of the individual human soul alongside of the collective narratives that are so much a part of our experience, we will be torn apart by the collective narratives. That's the point. Number 4 on my list is apocalyptic impatience. One of the things that happens with the age of Aquarius, or if we want to talk about it as, Pluto in Aquarius, the archetype of Aquarius in general, is the apocalypse means that which will be revealed. And of course, the water bearer, Ganymede, is a very privileged human being who is thought of as beautiful and sort of special and rare among humans, abducted by Zeus, taken up to Olympus. See, the gods desire something mortal. And of course, human beings desire things that are immortal. And there's this tension between the gods desiring us and us desiring the gods. It's at the core of the sign of Aquarius. One of the mythologies that's often associated with the sign of Aquarius through the modern rulership of Uranus is Prometheus. Prometheus, who steals the fire from the gods. There is a way in which Aquarius sort of amplifies our desire for transcendental knowledge, transcendental understanding, a revealing or unveiling of things that are secret and of a higher order. We want more knowledge. We want more intelligence. We want more understanding. We want better technology. See, we're reaching for things that are godlike. And one of the things that can happen in a Pluto in Aquarius era is that we can lose touch with the importance of mystery and of things being concealed and hidden, and how vital it is for things to be concealed, hidden, enigmatic, and paradoxical. In our quest for better technology, better understanding like that, we will often become very linear. For just a quick example would be, we've understood something about nuclear and atomic energy, and then we have a bomb, right? It's kind of like there are ways in which when things that are hidden are revealed to human consciousness in a kind of impatient, impulsive, urgent, non-reflective manner, that what is revealed becomes dangerous. That there's something about really, deep, profound knowledge that cloaks itself and that really only makes itself accessible through a kind of ongoing contemplative and reflective mindset, that we have to really sit with things and digest them before we understand them or before we know how to use what we're tapping into. This can become a really important thing for us to remember during Pluto's long stay in Aquarius. This is Socrates, who is characterizing poetry in general to be the production of riddles. And this is from a book by Peter Struck called The Birth of the Symbol. Great book. I really loved reading this book. Well, this man, the poet of the Margites, is speaking enigmatically, my good fellow. He and nearly all other poets too, for the whole poetic art is by nature riddling, and it is not just for any man to understand it. That's Socrates speaking about riddles. And one of the things, of course, that Socrates loved to do was go around and ask people questions until their sort of false sense of certainty arrived at through what I think Socrates would call a kind of impatient attitude, came apart. They were no longer certain. He would reveal that they didn't really know what they were talking about. And in that little passage, what I love is that Socrates is describing something that we know has been said by sages in the Buddhist tradition through things like Zen koans, that's been present in things like, the poetry of haikus, the presence of compact, dense little statements in Sanskrit, that's present in the beautiful, short, tight little passages of Taoist poetry, which is that anything that is really substantive is sort of a multifaceted jewel or gem. And it is best spoken of through things that express multidimensionality, like poetry, like metaphor. When you're learning the ancient Hermetic language of astrology, one of the things that's really amazing is that you're only learning one concept really deeply when you've understood something else that seems completely unrelated. Something about the 12th house will help you understand Saturn at last. And then the more you start unpacking something about Saturn, all of a sudden, now you're able to understand something about the 12th house that at first you were only glimpsing just a little part of. So there is such a privileging of what is enigmatic, what is cryptic, what is riddling, what is multifaceted in ancient schools of mysticism. Now, I'm not saying that Pluto in Aquarius will have no capacity for nuance, or that it's somehow just, like an overly rational or linear placement. But my point is that because Aquarius has such a fascination and interest in what constitutes progress, that when it comes to knowledge, that what can happen is we can get really impatient. I want to see what I can't see. I want to see what's being hidden. I want to understand more. I want to have more technology like that. That we lose track of the fact that for most of human history, those things that have been thought of as the most deeply held sacred and secret truths of existence require a deep level of contemplation, always involve paradox, and require that we sort of riddle over them. And that sometimes you can't even get there without something like music or dance or poetry. So we have to keep these things in mind, because we will be presented with powerful information in this age of Aquarius, this next 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. It doesn't mean that all of it, we should be reflective. We should pull what is being revealed into the inner space of riddling and contemplation. That should be our practice. And then number 5, an antidote to the kind of intoxication with humanism that comes with Pluto and Aquarius is animism. It doesn't mean that the two things, that only one can be true, but something that can save us from the most dissociative tendencies of progressive humanism, which Aquarius will just ramp up. I mean, the volume on progressive humanism will just get turned way up while Pluto's in Aquarius. It'll be like, what is the most progressive human story? This is good, that's bad. This is good for people, that's not good for people. This is the thing taking us into the best future. That's the thing that's going to take us into the past. This will bring disaster. This will bring salvation, right? Like that. Those stories are they're so human-centric. So I want to read to you one last thing here. This comes from James Hillman. If I can find it. Let me see here. You know what? I'm just going to pause because I need to pull it up. Okay, sorry about that. So here is the quote from James Hillman on a lecture that he gave about animism. In the animalized cosmos, there is no progress either. Remember, this is cutting against the grain of the Pluto in Aquarius mythology, which is that the death and rebirth of human civilization is at hand. Big shifts in human history are at hand. And while that's real, listen to Hillman push back against that. And the reason that we would want to push back against that is so that we do not get unconsciously abducted like Ganymede by Zeus in the grips of this archetype, right? So in the animalized cosmos, there is no progress either. Let's say you own a cat and you keep your cat for 7 or 12 years until one day it dies, stiff and straight on the floor. You get another cat, a different one, maybe a female one, and red. But there's no progress through the line of cats or repetition of cats. Memory makes comparisons among these avatars of the cat spirit. We see differences. But difference only becomes progress from better to worse or worse to better when differences are linked to history. For the native plains people in what is now the United States, the buffalo that appeared each spring to eat the new grass after the snow were always the same buffalo roaring up out of the earth and disappearing at the end of the season as the snows came on again. Repetition, differences, and sames, to use Aristotle's basic category, suddenness, changes, epiphanies, anything but progress. Yeah. Therefore, a foundation that aims to support culture will plant one foot firmly against history, against civilization, in order to hold open a door to culture. It must welcome at its reception desk the apparitions that do not make historical sense, the appetitions that seem an abrupt break without progenitors, something in and of itself without traces or sources, or with origins so remote they can only be imaginal, nor may a cultural foundation build bridges that aid the assimilation of culture by civilization. The spirit does not use bridges. It prefers gaps so that it can leap. Nor will a cultural foundation be occupied with renewal. New always implicates us in history. Instead, a foundation will foster the prehistorical and ahistorical, that a-civilized aspect of the soul, which today we are calling the animal soul. Like the French painters sought the South Seas and African masks to get out of history, to defeat its civilizing influence, but not to get to early man or the origins of art. No, the appetite for primitivity seeks the utterly different, an alien beauty, like the displays of the animal soul unadorned by civilization, archetypal in its constancy and therefore not new, but utterly familiar. Imagine that we let go of depending upon the new. To what then can the Americas turn when facing the unknown? For American civilization always relies on newness to mask its anxiety. What can nourish our optimism, our manic excitations that insist upon explorations, improvements, inventions that must speak of this hemisphere as a discovery? What would happen to God, the economy, and the frenzy of consumption from which this God lives if the new were obliterated as a category? No new frontiers, no new fashions, new and improved products, diets, restaurants, no new generation of computers and cars, no new state of the art, no idea of the latest. Without the new, we would have dropped completely out of science and technology, out of economic development, personality growth. What would we then notice if we had no news? We would have fallen altogether through the supportive structure of history. What remains below history? Where does this fall out of history take us? Into the pool of the ancestors, the eternal ones, the invisible, watching, waiting in the dreams, waiting in the melancholies, whispering still from childhood, like animal spirits or animals themselves. They are not new. There are no new animals, nor can we embrace the secret of their existence with such terms as repetition, eternal return, cyclical time, since these terms just lead us back into history. The animal records no history and is therefore neither old nor new. Those fossil remains that establish its heredity, the carbon dating of its bones, the paleozoology that reconstructs the millennial animal, are attempts to place this or that animal, the jaguar, the lizard, the monkey, into our scheme of time, into history again with traces of animal evolution. For the sake of what? The animal? No. So that we can again be at the top of the tree of time, the crown of creation. So I make this turn to the animal for the sake of this hemisphere, the reality of the world, mundo, when nuevo is deleted as its qualifier. I am stripping this American world of its historical adjectives in an attempt to undo the cosmology inherent in the very style and order of our assembly here and now, this architecture, this schedule, the very syntax of the words and ideas as I stand here. Clearly, my attempt is absurd and will fail, but better absurdities than conventions, better difficult failures than quick success. The turn to the animal is an archetypal move when the mind has trapped itself into its own cage of thought, the thought of history. he's on fire right there, right? But now what he's saying is sort of extreme, because it can almost, again, like much of this talk could almost sound like what we're saying is sort of bury your head in the sand, pretend that human history and the importance or relevance of these epic historical narratives are unreal. Like, no, not at all. What it's saying is be aware of them as imaginal, as archetypal, because we can get trapped in thinking that history is literal rather than archetypal, which means all of the ways that we have of interacting with history itself are archetypal, not literal. And that allows us to engage with more consciousness. We can bring these things with us into the age of Aquarius, so to speak. I think we'll be doing good. And along the way, if astrology can help us retain this sense of wonder, this primal sense of presence in an animate cosmos, made alive by archetypes, by gods, by spirits, then I think we're in really good shape to contribute something good to the world as astrologers and to also participate to whatever extent we feel called to participate in the unfolding of these collective stories. So I'll leave us there for today. Thank you guys for listening. You know, it was like, I think this was one of the harder talks for me to write in a while, because there's just a lot of tension in the air lately. You know, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of anger and frustration, there's a lot of polarization. And I think that Pluto in Aquarius, this is a really good archetype for us to work with and reflect upon right now. So I hope that I've provided you with something substantive and useful to that end, but also make sure that you, if this is a jumping off point for reflections that take you in a different direction or to some different conclusions, that's a good thing. I'm not here to, you know, indoctrinate people into the way that I see things or the ideas that I'm working with. I just hope that I provide people with things that are useful. So on that note, I hope you have a good day. We will see you again tomorrow, where we will take Pluto through all 12 sign horoscopes, give you some practical placement of Pluto in your birth chart. After I sign off, there is an informational video about the rewards available through the Kickstarter. You can find the link to donate and help our cause this year in the description of the video, in the comments section, or go to the website, nightlightastrology.com, and click on the Kickstarter 2025 link, and stick around to hear more about the rewards that we're offering. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you about the different rewards that we offer when you donate and support our channel in the year ahead. So you'll find a link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video, in the comments section of this video, as well as on our website, nightlightastrology.com. If you head over there, you'll see at the top of the page there is a menu item that says Kickstarter 2025. You can click on that and be taken over to the Kickstarter campaign page. So once you're there, if you scroll down on the right-hand side, you're going to see different pledge levels and different gifts and sales that we run as a way of saying thank you for your support. So among those, our most popular offering by far are the major discounts that we offer on our training programs. So if you are interested in studying astrology at Nightlight in 2025, whether you're a brand new student or a currently enrolled student who's thinking of taking one of our year 2, 3 horary programs, you're going to find that these are the best rates that we run on the entire year. And we do this as a way of both saying thank you and also of helping us raise funds to support the channel, our staff, and everything we do. So you'll see attend one Nightlight course there. That's about 50% off the total cost of the program and about $500 off the early bird rate. And then you'll scroll down and you'll see that if you bundle 2 courses together, the savings go way up. Bundle 3, they go up even more. I mean, the difference between the 2 and 3 class package is $200. So $200 more, you get 3 of our year-long programs. And if you get all the way to the 4 class pass, then you have all 4 years of our program. You can take them at any pace you like, renew them whenever you like. There's no timeline on when you use these class passes. And you will have all 4 years of content at about 75% off each of the programs individually when you get that bundle. So those are our best savings for sure. Highly recommend those. If you have any questions about our courses or programs, email us info@nightlightastrology.com or look at the website under the classes page, courses page. You'll find information about each of the individual courses we offer. And then if you scroll up, you're going to find some of our other programs that are greatly discounted. Ashley's Herbal Foundations apprenticeship course, which many people are interested in who come through our Moon Circle that Ashley and I lead each month. You scroll up, you're going to find our masterclass series for 2025, greatly discounted, as well as our Roots and Spheres Moon Circle, greatly discounted. There's hundreds of dollars of savings in each of those. So we really try to make sure that the Kickstarter acts as a good flash sale for all of our programs. You'll then find some really nice prices on previous archive talks, like our 2024 archive masterclass bundle, which is about 30 hours worth of content on specialized topics in astrology. You can see the topics listed in each of the bundles as you scroll through. 2023's masterclass bundle, huge savings on those and a lot of really great content. You'll see a few reading options as you continue to go from the bottom to the top. You'll see the 2025 year ahead mini reading. There's only 30 of these. These are individualized birth chart readings that I do, looking at the most significant transit in your birth chart for 2025. I record those personally. You'll then see that there is an Ask 3 Horary Questions option where you can get 3 horary questions to redeem whenever you'd like within the year ahead. Those are kind of yes, no predictive questions. Will I get the job? will we get together, things like that. Then you'll see the Astrology for Complete Beginners course is also discounted through the Kickstarter. This is a great 10 hours worth of content for people who are brand new to astrology. So whether that's you or maybe a gift for somebody else. And then you're going to see some individual master classes that are greatly discounted from the past year. So all of 2024's masterclass series are the archives of which 8 to 10 hours each are on sale. And then scroll up a little bit more and you'll see one of our most popular offerings, which are the year ahead horoscope readings. These year ahead horoscope readings include 30 to 45 minutes of a breakdown of all the major transits of the year ahead for each sun and rising signs. You get all of them with this package, which is a great deal. It's like 10 hours worth of content, 8, 9, 10 hours, somewhere in there. I haven't finished recording all of them yet. So as of the time I'm recording this, I'm anticipating it'll land around 10 hours. But yeah, anyway, so you scroll up. You'll see those horoscope videos will all be delivered to you right around January 1st when the Kickstarter ends. Scroll up a little bit more, you'll find The Oracle Speaks, which is my book, and this is being released chapter by chapter. It is a book about the inner experience of learning to speak with oracles, and it is being released chapter by chapter in both text and audiobook form, so you can listen along to my new book. And that takes us up to the Astrology of 2025 video. This, for your donation at the $50 level, gives you an exclusive talk breaking down all of the major astrological transits of 2025. I look in depth at some of the biggest things happening in the year ahead and break them down in advance. And that's the only place I release that video or that take on the whole year ahead. Finally, at the very top, the most basic level of donation, you'll see the Astrology of 2025 calendar. This is a PDF calendar we design and make that allows you to track and move along with the astrology as the year unfolds. This is also great if you want to track what we're going to be talking about week by week on my channel. You'll get a glimpse at the biggest transits of each day and month and week. And that will give you some sense of where we're heading with our coverage of the astrology on the channel as the year unfolds. So again, any questions about any of the rewards that you see, email us info@nightlightastrology. Link is in the description, comments, or on the website, nightlightastrology.com. Help us get to 1,937 backers by January 1st. We deeply appreciate your contribution. We try to make sure we have some really special rewards to say thank you when you contribute. All right, take it easy. Bye.